Hi, welcome to Lies and Secrets channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. My life seems straight out of a 68 sitcom with my husband Charlie, our loyal big dog Leo, and a home filled with laughter and love. But beneath this perfect facade there was a whisper of doubt. A shadow lurking in the corners of my mind was our idyllic life, as flawless as it appeared. The answer came one ordinary morning with a discovery that would shatter my world. A lipstick stain on Charlie's shirt, bright as the betrayal it represented and a scent not my own. What did I do next? You won't believe how I turned the tables in a game of silent revenge that would change everything. Keep watching to see how far I went to uncover the truth and reclaim my life. Here I am, Amy, living in the heart of the 1868, where the air was thick with the scent of Arquette and the sound of disco. My life on the surface seemed like a picture-perfect postcard of domestic bliss. My husband Charlie and we had it all: a cozy home, a faithful big dog named Leo, and the kind of marriage that neighbors envied. But you know how it is, right? Things aren't always what they seem back then. Marriage was like a well-choreographed dance. You had your steps, your roles, and everyone expected you to play your part without missing a beat. I was the dutiful wife, the homemaker, the one who kept the house warm and the coffee hot. Charlie, he was the breadwinner, the man of the house whose job was to provide and protect. But beneath the veneer of our 68 dream, there was this tension, a silent, knowing question that I couldn't shake off. I catch myself staring at Charlie, sometimes wondering if he felt the same way. Was he as content as he appeared, or was there someone else on his mind? The thought would creep in like a shadow, darkening the edges of my perfect life. I'd push it away, tell myself it was just the paranoia of a woman who read too many romance novels. But deep down I knew there was something amiss, something that didn't quite fit into the picture we'd painted for the world to see. And that, my friends, is where our story begins, not with a bang but with a whisper, a subtle hint of infidelity that would soon unravel everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and revenge. The morning started like any other, with the smell of bacon wafting through the house, the sound of Leo's tail thumping against the kitchen floor, and the distant hum of Charlie's razor from the bathroom. I was in the kitchen flipping pancakes, trying to keep my mind on the mundane tasks that filled my days. But today something felt off, like a note played slightly out of tune. As I set the table, I noticed Charlie's shirt hanging on the back of the chair. It was one of his favorites, a crisp white shirt that he wore to work. But today it bore the unmistakable mark of a woman's lipstick, a bright, bold red smear on the collar. My heart skipped a beat, then sank. I touched the stain, my fingers trembling, the reality of what it might mean washing over me like cold water. I could have confronted him right then as he walked into the kitchen, his face still damp from shaving, but instead I smiled, handed him his plate, and sat down across from him. "Sleep well?" I asked, my voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside me. Charlie nodded, oblivious to the turmoil I was feeling. "Yes, like a log, you fine," I lied, pushing the eggs around my plate. My mind was racing. Was this the first time? How long had this been going on? Questions were like knives slicing through the facade of our happy marriage. The day went on with me going through the motions of my usual routine, but my thoughts were elsewhere. I found myself in the laundry room holding Charlie's shirt again, the scent of another woman's perfume lingering on the fabric. It was a scent I didn't recognize, something floral and expensive, not like the simple fragrances I wore. I decided then I wouldn't confront him directly. No, that would be too easy, too predictable. Instead, I would watch, wait, and plan. If Charlie thought he could have his cake and eat it too, he was in for a surprise. That evening, as we sat on the porch with Leo at our feet, I began to plot my revenge. Charlie was talking about some deal at work, his voice animated, but I was barely listening. My eyes were on Leo, who was always so loyal, so loving. An idea started to form: a way to use Leo not just as a companion, but as a tool in my subtle warfare. I started to treat Leo with an affection that bordered on the theatrical. I talked to him in a soft, loving voice, share secrets with him, all while Charlie was within earshot. I'd stroke Leo's fur, kiss his head, and whisper, "You're the only one I can trust. Aren't you, boy?" Charlie would look over a puzzled look on his face, but I'd just smile as if everything was perfectly normal. This was just the beginning, the first move in a game of chess where I was determined to checkmate Charlie's betrayal. The anger was there, simmering beneath the surface, but it was the calculation, the cold, hard planning that was keeping me going. I knew what I had to do, and I was ready to play my part in this twisted dance of deceit and retribution. I started to notice the subtle shifts in Charlie's behavior. He was more attentive, more affectionate, perhaps sensing something was off, but unable to pinpoint what. But I was not about to let his sudden change in demeanor deter me from my path. One evening, as we sat in the living room, I made a point to sit closer to Leo, his head resting on my lap, my fingers gently scratching behind his ears. Charlie was flipping through a magazine, but his eyes kept darting over to us. "You've really taken to Leo lately," he remarked, his voice casual but with an edge of curiosity. "He's such a good boy," I replied, my voice dripping with an affection that was meant for Charlie's ears. "He listens, he's loyal, and he never lies to me." The words hung in the air, a subtle jab at Charlie's infidelity. Charlie's face tightened, but he didn't respond directly. Instead, he stood up, announced he was going to bed early, and left the room. I could feel the tension, the unspoken acknowledgement of my words. The next day, I took Leo for a longer walk than usual. Knowing Charlie would be home soon, I made sure to return. Just as he pulled into the driveway, Leo and I laughing and playing a picture of happiness. Charlie watched us from the car, his expression unreadable. Inside, I continued my charade. I talked to Leo about things that should have been shared with Charlie. "You know, Leo, sometimes people aren't what they seem. They pretend to love, but they are just playing a part." Charlie, overhearing this, slammed his coffee mug down a bit too hard, the sound echoing through the kitchen. Tension was palpable. Now Charlie tried to engage more to pull me back into our usual routines, but I was too far into my plan to retreat. I started leaving love notes around the house.
But instead of addressing them to Charlie, they were all for Leo. "To my dearest Leo, you make every day brighter." I'd write, knowing Charlie would find them. One afternoon, as I was in the garden with Leo, Charlie approached Amy. "What's going on with you and the big dog?" His tone was not confrontational, but concerned, perhaps even a bit jealous. "What do you mean?" I asked, feigning innocence, my hands buried in the soil, planting flowers that would never bloom for us. "You're different with him. It's like you're replacing me with Leo," he said, his voice cracking slightly. I looked up at him, my eyes meeting his with a cold clarity. "Maybe I am," I said, softly, "because at least with Leo, I know where I stand." Charlie's face fell, the realization dawning on him. He turned away, his steps heavy as he walked back into the house. I could see the confusion, the hurt, but also a flicker of fear in his eyes. The days that followed were filled with this new dynamic. Charlie tried to win back my affection, but every gesture was met with my calculated indifference. I'd spend more time with Leo, even taking him to bed with me, something I knew would unsettle Charlie. One night, as Charlie was getting ready for bed, he found Leo already there, curled up next to me. "Really, Amy?" he asked, his voice, a mix of frustration and resignation. "He keeps me warm," I replied, my tone icy, "and he doesn't leave the bed." Smelling like someone else's perfume. Charlie stood there, his silhouette framed by the doorway, looking lost. I didn't mean for things to get this way," he whispered, more to himself than to me. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned off the light, leaving him in the dark, both literally and metaphorically. The silence was thick, the air charged with the weight of our unspoken truths. As days turned into weeks, the strain was evident. Charlie was trying, but every attempt was met with my cold, calculated responses. The house felt like a battlefield with Leo unwittingly as my ally. But beneath my resolve, there was a growing sense of loss, a realization that perhaps this game of revenge was costing me more than I had anticipated. Yet I couldn't stop. Now the path of retribution was set, and I was too far down it to turn back. The tension in our home had grown to a palpable thickness, like a fog that wouldn't lift. Charlie's attempts to bridge the growing chasm between us were met with my icy silence, and every day I could see the toll it was taking on him, but I couldn't stop now. The path of retribution I had chosen was as clear as it was unforgiving. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through our living room, Charlie finally broke. He stood in the doorway, his frame silhouetted against the fading light, his voice barely above a whisper, but laden with a weight that filled the room. "Amy, we need to talk." I was sitting on the couch, Leo's head on my lap, my fingers absent, stroking his fur. I looked up at Charlie. My expression, unreadable. Talk about what, Charlie? I asked, my voice calm, almost detached. About this, he gestured vaguely between us. His frustration evident. About you and Leo, about everything. What's happening, Amy? I took a deep breath, feeling the moment I had been both dreading and anticipating was upon us. What's happening? Charlie, is that I know? I said, my voice steady, but with an edge that cut through the silence. Know what? His voice cracked, a mix of confusion and fear. I stood up, Leo moving to sit beside me, his presence a silent ally. In this confrontation, I know about her, the lipstick, the perfume I've known for a while. Charlie's face went pale, his eyes wide. With the shock of realization, Amy. I know. I cut him off, my voice rising slightly, the control slipping. Don't you dare try to explain or justify you've betrayed me, Charlie, and now you're feeling what it's like to be on the other side. Aren't you to see someone you love give their affection to someone else? He stepped closer, his hands reaching out as if to touch me. But I recoiled. Amy, please, let's pretend everything's fine, that you didn't break our vows. My words were sharp, each one a dagger aimed at his guilt. I made a mistake. Amy, I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough, Charlie. You've made me feel like I'm not enough, like our life together isn't enough. And now you're jealous of Leo of all things, because he's getting the affection you threw away. The room was charged with our emotions, the air thick with the unsaid. Charlie's face was a mask of pain, his eyes searching mine for any sign of forgiveness. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was wrong, but this game with Leo, it's tearing us apart. I looked at him, really looked at him, seeing the man I loved. Now a stranger in his own home. Maybe it's not a game, Charlie. Maybe it's me trying to find some semblance of loyalty and love in this house. Maybe it's me showing you what betrayal feels like. He slumped against the wall, his head in his hands. Amy, I love you. I've made a terrible mistake, but I want to fix this. I want us back. I felt a pang of sorrow, a part of me longing to believe him, to forgive. But the hurt was too deep, the betrayal too fresh. You can't just fix this, Charlie. You've broken something fundamental between us, and now you're going to feel every ounce of the pain you've caused. The silence that followed was deafening. Charlie looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mix of regret and resolve. I'll do whatever it takes. Amy, I'll prove it to you. I turned away, walking towards the kitchen, leaving him with his words hanging in the air. A confrontation had brought everything to the surface. The truth laid bare, but the resolution was still out of reach, obscured by the hurt and the need for retribution that still burned within me. The kitchen door swung shut behind me, the soft click echoing like a gavel in the quiet house. My heart was pounding, not just from the confrontation, but from the realization that the moment of truth had arrived. I leaned against the counter, my hands gripping the edge until my knuckles turned white. Charlie followed me, his footsteps hesitant, each one a reminder of the trust that had been shattered. Amy, please. He implored, his voice, a mixture of desperation and hope. I turned to face him, my resolve hardening. You want to know what this is all about,
Charlie?
It's about making you feel the same emptiness I've been carrying since I found out about your affair. My voice was low, each word measured for impact. I've been using Leo, yes, to show you what it feels like to be replaced. To be second best. His eyes wide with shock searched mine for any sign of softening, but found none. Amy, I know I interrupted my tone. I see. You've had your chance to speak, now it's my turn. You've been unfaithful, not just physically but emotionally. You've given your heart to someone else, And I wanted you to feel that betrayal to understand the depth of the pain you've caused. Charlie's face crumpled, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. I never thought, I didn't realize that's the point. Charlie, you didn't realize how your actions would tear us apart. So, I decided to show you every time I hugged Leo. Every time I whispered to him. I was showing you what it feels like to be on the outside looking in. He took a step back, his back hitting the wall as if he needed support. Amy, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen. I want to make it right, but can you? Charlie? Can you really? I asked, my voice breaking as the facade of control slipped. I've been living with this pain, this betrayal, and now you're feeling just a fraction of it through Leo, but it's not just about him. It's about us, about what we've lost. The room was silent except for our breathing, heavy with the weight of our fractured marriage. Charlie looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. I love you. Amy, I'll do anything to fix this, please, let's try. I felt the tears well up, my own resolve, wavering under the raw emotion. I don't know if we can fix this. Charlie, I've been so angry, so hurt. I wanted you to hurt too. But now I'm not sure what I want. He stepped forward, his hands reaching out this time. I didn't recoil. I'm here. Amy, I'm here to listen, to understand, to make amends. I've been blind, but I see now. I see what I've done to you, to us. The air between us was charged, not with anger, but with a painful clarity. I looked at him, really looked, seeing not just the man who had betrayed me, but the one I had loved. I used Leo as a mirror. Charlie, to show you your own reflection in betrayal. But maybe in doing so I've lost sight of who we were. He nodded, his face, a canvas of regret. I understand, and I'm sorry. I'll spend every day showing you that a climax of our story wasn't just about revenge or confrontation. It was about understanding, about seeing the depth of our wounds. As I stood there with Charlie's hands gently taking mine, I realized that the path forward would be long, fraught with pain, but perhaps, just perhaps, worth the journey. I took a deep breath, the scent of the old kitchen, mixing with the lingering tension between us. Charlie's hands were warm, a stark contrast to the cold reality we faced. I've been so focused on making you feel what I felt. I admitted, my voice softer now that I might have lost myself in the process. He squeezed my hands gently, his eyes searching mine. I know, Amy, and I'm sorry for pushing you to this point, but we're here now together, and I want to work through this. I want us to heal. I nodded, the weight of our shared history pressing down on me. I've been thinking a lot about Leo, I said, glancing towards the living room where our loyal big dog lay, oblivious to the human drama unfolding around him. He's innocent in all this, and yet I've used him as a pawn that wasn't fair to him. Charlie followed my gaze, his expression softening. You're right. Leo's been our constant, our source of joy. He deserves better than to be caught in our mess. The mention of Leo brought a small smile to my face, a brief respite from the gravity of our conversation. We've got to make it up to him, too. I said, maybe we can take him on that trip to the mountains. We've always talked about just the three of us away from all this. That sounds perfect. Charlie agreed, his voice carrying a hopeful note, a fresh start for all of us. We stood there, the silence now less oppressive, more contemplative. I've realized something through all of this. I continued, my thoughts turning inward. Revenge might give you a moment of satisfaction, but it doesn't heal. It doesn't bring back what was lost. I've been so caught up in my pain that I didn't see the path to recovery. Charlie's gaze was steady, filled with a mix of guilt and resolve. I've hurt you, Amy, deeply, and I understand if you need time or if you decide you can't forgive me. But I'm here ready to do whatever it takes to rebuild what we had. This sincerity, in his words, struck a chord. I don't know what the future holds for us, Charlie, I confessed. But I do know that I'm tired of the anger, the plotting. I want peace. I want to find out if we can still be us. After all this, he nodded, his eyes glistening. I want that too. More than anything, we moved to the living room, sitting on the couch with Leo between us, his head resting on my lap. The simple act of petting him, feeling his warmth, brought a sense of normalcy. reminder of the life we had built together. I've been thinking about what it means to forgive, I said, watching Leo's tail wag lazily. It's not just about letting go of the hurt, but also about choosing to move forward. Maybe not forgetting, but deciding not to let it define us. Charlie reached over his hand, joining mine on Leo's back. I'll earn your trust back, Amy, every day if I have to. I looked at him, seeing the man I had fallen in love with beneath the layers of our recent turmoil. Let's take it one day at a time, I suggested. We'll see where it leads us. As the evening light faded, casting long shadows across the room, I felt a cautious optimism. The path to reconciliation was uncertain, fraught with challenges. But for the first time in months, I felt like we were walking it together in the quiet, with Leo's steady breathing as our soundtrack. I whispered, maybe, just maybe, we can find our way back to each other, and with that we sat in silence, not as adversaries or victims, but as partners, contemplating the journey ahead, hoping that love, patience, and a little bit of grace might just be enough to mend what had been broken. This is a true story shared by one of our subscribers, edited by me to ensure anonymity and security. I've changed names and some details, but the essence of the story remains authentic. If you enjoy the video, please like and comment, and I'll do my best to respond to everyone. So here's my story.